Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Q Craft Ditch Summit, where we are all about good, solid learning, making good pedagogy available to everybody, and giving you the inspiration and the examples that you need to make it happen. And I'm Matt Miller. I'm your host yet again for another one of these videos, the author of Ditch That Textbook. And today we are going to be chatting with one of my favorite people on the planet, and someone who has really good insight into this and has written a book that is full of lots of examples. And I'm just really looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have. So let me switch you over to my friend and podcast co-host, Kasey Bell, and we're going to be chatting about all things techie and learning, and there'll probably be some Google in there too, wouldn't you imagine, Kasey?
I think it's inevitable, Matt. Thank you, first of all, for that wonderful introduction. My partner in crime, as I like to refer to, Jimmy Matt. And
right.
If you don't know who Jimmy Matt is, then you need to be listening to the Google Teacher Tribe podcast, so you can be in the know and in our little secret club here. But no, thank you so much. I'm honored to be here and honored to share with the Q Craft community and the Ditch Book community.
Yeah, definitely. So give everybody the quick elevator pitch of who you are and what you do real quick.
Yeah, so that's hard. I am a digital learning consultant for the Regenton Education Service Center, which is in the Dallas area. And I also get to travel around and work with schools across the country and get to present sometimes with this guy here. Occasionally we get to share a stage. I also blog at shakeuplearning.com, and I released the Shake Up Learning book back in April. So I spend a lot of time trying to shake things up, y'all. that's my jam. I really just want to help teachers learn how to do things differently in their classroom and use technology as an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and actually that's the perfect segue. It's like we planned this or something. That's the perfect segue into what I want to talk about today is, in your book, Shake Up Learning, there's a lot of talk about that. And I know that if people are familiar with your blog, they know that, there's lots of things Google related that you share too, but it all comes back to the heart of what you can do with those tools. And I love the, sort of like the slogan at the bottom of the book here. It says, technology is not a solution. It is an opportunity. And actually here, I'm going to take a little risk here and do this. I want to show you the bottom of my computer here. And there it is right there. It may be backwards. I don't know, but it says that exact same thing. Technology is not a solution. It is an opportunity to shake up learning. Let's see if I can get this.
Well, I'm honored I made the laptop.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And it's like right down here where I can see it too. It's not even on the back where it's hidden. So technology is not a solution. It is an opportunity. And how we use that opportunity, do we choose? It makes me think of the Indiana Jones movie. Did he choose wisely or did he choose poorly? And so there are lots of directions that we can go with that. So Kasey, kind of elaborate on that, what that means to you, that technology is not a solution. It is an opportunity.
Well, I've been in the ed tech world now for several years, and I've seen school district after school district purchase tons of technology, infrastructure, spend millions and millions of dollars of getting this technology and thinking that it was somehow going to magically transform not only their standardized test grades, but, kids were going to magically be engaged. And it was like this silver bullet sort of idea, I think, that a lot of schools have had. And that's frankly just not true, because I've walked into schools who've invested heavily in technology. And if they don't also have purpose behind it and purpose-driven PD for their teachers, it sits there and it gathers dust, or it's used to complete an online worksheet. And so, as I have worked with teachers over the years, I've seen a lot of missed opportunities, really. What the questions that I get can sometimes, and you probably feel this way too, but a lot of the questions I get from teachers can be really eye-opening to me about where they are sort of in the continuum of technology integration and understanding the ways that it can be used to do things differently. And so I like to refer to those things as missed opportunities. How do I get my worksheet in Google Classroom? Okay, well, let's back up. We always want to focus back on the learning goals. And that's what I always come back. What is your learning goal? I don't ever want to start with the tech tool. I want to start with the learning. And so that's the big focus. And really where the whole idea of dynamic learning comes in, Matt, I don't know if you remember this, but the word dynamic came out of my mouth during your first Ditch Summit.
That's right. I forgot about that. That's so true.
And so it really was just by accident, because I think the whole comparison between dynamic and static sort of stuck in my head, and sort of that, traditional versus new world, new age, 21st century type of thing. So that was really where I started trying to define kind of all the things we want to see in the classroom. And that's really what dynamic learning is just sort of bringing all of those things together into a meaningful framework.
Yeah, and let's go there for a little bit. This really is one of my favorite parts of your book, is the idea of creating dynamic learning instead of static learning. And you've got a lot of good kind of like frameworks and have broken that all down. And I think, that's really one of the great ways that we can use technology to amplify what we do in the classroom is to keep the learning going and not to have it just like a one-dimensional, set it and forget it, and now it's over and done with type of thing. So yeah, maybe you can dig into that idea of dynamic learning for us a little bit and help us to understand it.
Sure. Should I share my?
Yes, that would be great, actually.
Let's do that. So let's see if I can get my.
And as Kasey's doing that, she's getting ready, I think, to share some of the graphics that she has in this book. And I know, some of the things that she's got here. Oh, I should have had this book marked ahead of time. Oh, well, she's got some really good, all of the stuff that Kasey does graphically is awesome. And so she's got a lot of the charts and the infographics and all of that stuff in the book that you can see. But this one that you're about to see right now is in full living color.
Yes. So you can see it now, right? I am.
Yes.
Good. I know how to screen share.
Yay. Congratulations.
So this is the dynamic learning framework. So of course you see the dynamic learning model at the middle, and that's where I like to keep the focus. I learned this years and years ago from my school district, Leander ISD, and we had a learning model for students, and student learning was at the center of everything that we do. So I like to keep that focus again on the learning and not on the technology, because you'll notice there's not one thing in here that says it has to be tech to be dynamic. So right. We've got the 4 C's, and I don't know about you, but pretty much anytime I see something amazing in a classroom, something that's engaging, you're going to see one of those 4 C's, if not more than one going on. Mm-hmm. And then you see the little color-coded icons. And these are really the characteristics of dynamic learning. And as I started digging in and finding the commonalities between all of these great things that are happening, like Genius Hour and maker spaces and all of these things that are awesome, but are not going to happen every single day in every classroom, I wanted to figure out how can we pull in those pieces, those characteristics. And so the word beyond came to me, and really about pushing boundaries. And so beyond the bell, beyond the grade level and the subject area, beyond the walls, beyond the tools, and beyond the due date. And so really beyond the bell is all about that student learning mindset, that learning doesn't have to end when the bell rings, and just helping them understand and build that growth mindset, but that continuous learning mindset. Beyond the grade level and subject area, that's really about helping kids get off of that conveyor belt, so to speak, and diving into the things that they're interested in and passionate about. And just really sort of pushing beyond just what the curriculum says that kids have to learn. Beyond the walls is sort of two-sided, both bringing the outside world into your classroom through global connections, as well as giving your students an opportunity to share their work with the world. And then beyond the tools, which is something Matt and I do a lot and talk a lot about, is right. Really about using tools in alternative ways and using them to do new things, moving past that substitution level and really just thinking how we can use this to engage our students and focus on learning. And then beyond the due date, don't get worried, because I know you have to get that grade in your grade book, but really this is about helping students and mentoring and coaching them to continue the things that interest them even after it's been assessed. It's sort of like, I always give that example of that student who didn't want to stop working on their project. That's a missed opportunity. And it would break my heart to say, you got to turn it in so I can get it in the grade book. And, as soon as they turn it in, they're sort of stifled. But, with digital tools, we don't physically have to give up ownership. So we have a lot of opportunities to help them keep learning the things that they want to learn.
Yeah. These are so great. I'm going to leave this graphic up here for everybody for just a second. And see, I look at this and I also look at it from kind of a different perspective. And if we remove that great word beyond that you added to all of these, and we stick to just within the confines of the bell, within the grade level and subject area, within the walls, within just the tools and the due date, and we start to see that real, traditional way we've always done it type of classroom. And just by looking at, I think, one area at a time, because if we look at all 5 of these, it can get pretty overwhelming pretty fast. But I think, if we can at least just kind of focus on these one by one, take a little piece at a time and find ways that we can integrate them into our classes are probably going to change pretty fast, wouldn't you think?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you too. And when I present on this, I'm like, just start with one tiny little thing, just, and I will tell you too, out of all of these, the ones that everybody jumps on first is beyond the tools. It seems to be the easiest way to really jump into some of these ideas. And you and I talk about this all the time. But for instance, alternative ways to use Google Slides.
Right.
So something as simple as learning how to use a tool in a way that maybe it wasn't designed to be used can help you branch out into doing more things. And of course, when you start doing that, you're creating and you're communicating and you're doing all those things. So the 4 C's just kind of naturally weave into all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, kind of along with that, there's another piece that I really like from the book. You've got that great infographic of the do this, not that, the dynamic learning versus the static learning. And I know I've heard you say before, it's not like scolding people for doing one thing and this is wrong and this is right, but it's examples. It's like practical examples. And so some of the ones that I love out of here is it says like, a static learning might look like write a research paper on World War II, but dynamic learning might look like a Skype interview with a war survivor in another country. That's one of those things that it engages, and it's one of those experiences that kids will remember, and they can actually kind of like participate in it. A written biography of Winston Churchill, that might be static learning, but a public class website on inspiring historical figures, past and present, in which additional content is added throughout the year. There's that dynamic piece where we're continually working on it. You hear people say sometimes that once you put a grade on it and hand it back to kids, they're done with it. It's like they've moved on. But with that, then we're continually doing more and different things. So that's another piece of this that I really love.
Yeah, I feel like too, I say this all the time when I'm presenting confessions of a bad teacher, which I've told people I probably should just go ahead and make a presentation called Confessions of a Bad Teacher, because all of the lessons I've learned have been from my own mistakes, right? That's what we talk about in being able to take risks and learning from our failures. But, I was very guilty of doing the one and done in my classroom. Do this worksheet, turn it in, read this article, answer some questions, turn it in. I didn't do a very good job of connecting the dots and of thinking long term. And because we now have these tools at our disposal, we have the ability to make those continuous projects more of a reality, because kids can keep adding, and they can walk in and say, hey, Miss Bell, would Steve Jobs be good to add to our inspiring historical figures website? And that's an opportunity to have a conversation about what that means and compare him to Winston Churchill and, see where that goes. So I think that there's lots of opportunities with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love that. And so, I know that you've seen, and I know that I've seen that some really good dynamic learning, some of those things where, technology is an opportunity. A lot of those come when you utilize some of those tools in G Suite, some of those Google tools. And it's not to say that Google's the only way to go. But, for instance, Adobe Spark. Adobe is our sponsor here for the QCraft Ditch Summit. They're the exact same way, where there are lots of really good ways to help kids create and to use technology as an opportunity. But I also know that on your blog, a lot of the examples come from some of those Google tools. So I wanted to kick this over to you and ask, what is it, do you think, about G Suite? And of course, if we've got people that are watching and they're Office 365, there's so many parallels that you can draw to these, that a lot of these I think would cross over to Office 365 too.
Right.
But with the the G Suite tools, what is it, do you think, that really empowers that great dynamic learning in the classroom? What are some of the features and the things about it that really create the environment where that kind of learning can happen?
Well, of course, I'm a huge G Suite fan and talk about it, and everybody asks questions about G Suite, although we both believe there are other things out there as well. But G Suite offers so many things in a unique way, and in a way that is 99.9% reliable. And that's pretty hard to compete with. It hardly ever goes down. It's available offline. They offer the best collaboration platform that's out there. I don't care what you show me. There is nothing that compares with the synchronous collaboration that you can have inside of G Suite. Other tools are still trying to catch up, I think, and there's great ways to collaborate, but just that ability alone, and the fact that it's all in the cloud and you have unlimited storage, that's just like a breath of fresh air. So as soon as teachers get introduced into G Suite, like when I do a beginning, like first time login, yeah, it's a little overwhelming, but once they see those parallels, they start making those connections between the skills that they have. And G Suite makes it really easy to continue to learn and to figure things out, even if they've sort of moved things around.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And as far as the collaboration goes, I'm right on board with that. Just like you said, I think that, the ability to share things quickly and easily and to be able to comment on them and all of that, that's, I think that as seamless as that is, that's one of those great things. And of course, you get into collaboration. That's one of your 4 C's. Whenever you look at the list of skills that employers are looking for in job candidates, collaboration and communication skills and all of that are always right up at the top. And so, I think the circumstances and the environment is there for that kind of learning, and it just depends on how we want to use it. I think kind of like what we keep saying, it's not a solution, it's an opportunity. And so, yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just thinking about this because one of the things that I stated in the book is you're never going to see me do a post that says, here's a list of dynamic learning tools.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's about how you use that tool. And, I get really frustrated. Of course, I'm a huge Pinterest user too. And you'll see, here's all the tools that align with SAMR. Here's all the Bloom's tools. It doesn't work that way. And if you really know anything about these things, that's totally misleading to teachers. And I facilitated a student panel a few weeks ago that was pretty eye-opening. So I want to point out how important that is. Even though we love G Suite, it can be abused and not used for good. It can be sort of the go-to to just keep doing the same things. And what happened was I was in a school district that's 1-to-1 with MacBook Airs. Very, very lucky kids to have these things. And so I kept asking them, what kinds of things are you doing in your classroom? And what kind of, what are you actually creating and doing? Sorry, I didn't know if you wanted me to keep going or not.
Nope, you're good. You're good. Okay. Sorry, I just had a quick question for my son. Keep going.
That's okay. He can poke his head in and say hi too. But what was interesting, we had 3rd grade through 12th grade, and every single one of them said they did Google Slides. And I was like, okay, so what are you doing with Google Slides? Yeah. We're creating a presentation. Every single grade level, every single subject area was doing the same things with the same tools. So those kids were not, even at a senior AP kids, these kids were like top of their class. They were not getting exposed to other types of ways to use slides or use other tools. So even though I talk about slides all the time, Swiss Army knife of G Suite, it's fabulous. But if you don't use all the tools in the tool belt, the kids are going to get tired of doing the same things over and over again. So I think it's important to give variety and to collaborate with the teachers at your grade level and in your department to make sure that you are sort of diversifying that across the board.
Yeah. I want to follow up on that too. We both have the mutual love of Google Slides because it is kind of like the Swiss Army knife, and there's so much that you can do with it. And one of the reasons I think that's so important is because sometimes when we go in search of the new, shiny, exciting digital tool or app or website to use in our class, there's a little bit of a learning curve that comes with that. So whenever you get kids plugged into a new platform or a new website or app or whatever, it's going to take them a little while to get the hang of it. But with something like Google Slides, so many of us, whether it's slides or PowerPoint or whatever, so many of us are familiar with, presentation slide software. And there's a chance that as kids come up through the different grades that they will have been exposed to it. And so whenever you use something like that they're already sort of keyed into and they know how it works, they won't have to fumble around to figure out how to do what they want to do. And B, their brains already are sort of tuned into creating with that tool. So it's kind of like you think of, let's say teenagers that use Instagram and they're excited about Instagram stories. And so what they might do is they're not just thinking about how can I take this picture, how can I take this video, but how does it fit within the framework of an Instagram story? And so now whenever you've got kids continuing to use one of those tools like Slides, like Flipgrid, like Adobe Spark, like all of these different things, they're already thinking, I know how the different features work on this. And I see this picture, but I also think, oh, I could apply this filter to it. Oh, I could add the quote right here. Oh, I'm going to move myself over to this side so that there's this space over here so that I can add this in Slides. And so I think whenever you start to do that, and continue to stick on that one tool that they're familiar with, but find different ways to do it, now you're not overwhelming them with having to learn new things, and they can start to think creatively using stuff that they're already familiar with.
Yes. And that's true for teachers too, and scaffolding. And that's how we learn. The first thing we do is substitute, right? When we pick up a new tool, we're like, hey, how can I use this to do something I already know how to do? So, we have to build that capacity and build those skills, but it's so empowering to put the creation into students' hands. And I think that's what frustrates me about doing presentation after presentation, because really they're just putting information on a slide and they're not coming up with something that's new or using those digital tools in a new way, which in the book I have a little continuum, just between using digital tools to do old things versus using digital tools to do new things. And that's not anything new. And, if you get into this, SAMR model, I really just wanted to simplify it because I feel like SAMR sometimes pushes teachers to think it's too impossible to reach. So I really like to kind of simplify it a little bit just to make it easier for teachers to think about those things. So for instance, with Slides, and one of the beyonds that I mentioned earlier that a lot of teachers have a hard time figuring out where it fits in your classroom, the Beyond the Bell piece, which again is about building that lifelong learning mindset, goal setting for students, which is something I don't think a lot of teachers actually spend time letting students set their own learning goals, both for their classroom and the things that the kids want to learn on their own. And that's actually an ISTE standard under the Empowered Learner strand to help kids do that. And so, one thing that I've shared is having students set their own learning goals using something like Google Keep, that they can put it down and come back to it and look at those goals and see, hey, did I actually accomplish this? So, and then another thing that I really like, and it takes me back to Slides, of course, are the student created vision boards. And using Google Slides. And actually, I have that if you want me to do a quick screen share and show everybody what that's like, because I feel like this is something lesser known in terms of not only how to use Slides, but as a different way to think about learning in the classroom. And it's particularly good for the the ways that we look at things in terms of our own learning. You know, as teachers, I feel like it's really good for any professional to set their own learning goals and to think about this. But the idea with this really is just to visualize yourself accomplishing a goal. And I do it actually. I'll even like put myself out there. I have my foam board in my office. I know you can't see it because I'm sharing my screen, but I get old school with it, crafty, and I create a vision board. Hey, what do I want to accomplish? And that's a really powerful way to think about learning. And there's actually a lot of research to support that if you visualize yourself and you come back and you revisit these things. So this is a great like back to school activity as well, because one is going to help you get to know your kids. It's going to help you build those relationships and do some goal setting for your classroom. And kids don't often get to make those connections. Why am I learning this? What does this take me to?
Mm-hmm. Right. This is actually going in exactly the direction that I wanted it to go. You know, we've talked about dynamic learning and how to go beyond and all of that. And so now I think we're kind of turning the corner into what does this look like in the classroom? And I think that's a good example of, you know, what creation can look like. But also, I mean, the goal setting, you're right on the mark there about how so often whenever the goals are made for the class, you know, a lot of times as teachers, we do it ourselves. And, you know, a lot of really great teachers do bring kids into the goal setting process and for individual goals and for class goals and everything. But I think a lot of times that kind of gets left off. So yeah, let's keep going with that, Kasey, with ways that some of this would continue to look in the classroom. And I know, you know, since we've sort of started down the creation side of things, you know, creating vision boards with something like Google Slides, that could, of course, be done with Adobe Spark has, you know, really great ways to do that with their pages. So that fits too. But I mean, there's lots of different ways that you could do that. What are some other ones? Do you have any other ones off the top of your head as far as creating? I know we talk about on the Google Teacher Tribe podcast, it seems like we're talking about Google Slides all the time and all the ways that kids can create using Google Slides. And so maybe something with slides or something else. What else have you got for us?
Sure. So, you know, I think too, we forget about just the power of communication alone and having these conversations, whether it's about their learning or whatever they want to do. And I feel like there's a lot of different ways to have conversations that maybe everyone doesn't think about. Of course, within Google and outside of Google, for instance, Google Groups. Groups.google.com is a great way to set up a discussion board to have these types of conversations, you know, and the things that we ask kids in terms of supporting their interests and their passions. A lot of kids may still not even know what they're interested in, but to start that, hey, you know, what do you struggle with? Or if you came to school and you got to learn anything you wanted to learn, what would you spend your time on? Mm-hmm. Which has brought about some really interesting answers. I've had teachers who've been putting that question out to their own students. And I did it on that student panel that I was mentioning earlier. And so one of the things that the kids, they all wanted to draw. They wanted to get their hands on and start drawing. Like the little kids, that was like their number one thing. They wanted to come to, and the older kids, they couldn't tell me. They couldn't think of anything because guess what? They're playing that game of school and that's all they know. And their brains are so wired to think of that. And so those ideas of creation and getting creative in general, I feel like had been stifled by the time they got to those older grades.
And, you know, I think that gets, it's just like you said, sometimes that gets stifled. It's like, you know, I've heard so many different speakers, you know, Sir Ken Robinson is the one that comes to my mind the most, that say that as kids get older, it's like the creative, not like the creative gene, but their creative capacities start to get diminished to some degree. And I think it's because, I don't know, I think there's lots of reasons that it happens, but that's something that doesn't have to stay that way, is it? It's like, it's one of those things where if we continually try to change the climate and the culture in the classroom and encourage kids in those creative capacities, that we can change that a little bit so that, you know, when you ask the question and the older kids couldn't answer, it's because for all of this time, maybe they haven't been conditioned to think that way. But if we slowly start to condition them, if we try to steer that boat and it, slowly change its course, then eventually it can change. And I think they can think differently about their own creative abilities. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, it is sort of one of those things that you either learn to play the game of school or you don't. And I taught middle school, and a lot of times they were just either on one side or the other. And unfortunately, a lot of kids could get left behind just because they weren't good at completion and compliance. And, that's really unfair. And I think it's really unfair to students. I mean, there are life skills, but so many kids can do some amazing things and blow us out of the water, and to stifle that just breaks my heart. I mean, it's the same thing with that example of the student who didn't want to stop working. I would have a kid that would come, Miss Bell, can I just have one more day? And it wasn't because they weren't done,
right?
Because they didn't want to stop. And I'm like, that's the kind of opportunity I don't want to miss out on, because especially before we had so many digital tools, a lot of times that meant they physically had to give it to me. I'm like, I'm sorry, I got to get it in the grade book. But what if instead I'm like, okay, let me assess it online, let me peek in, but you keep working and I'm going to check in and I want you to tell me how this is going so I can take on more of that coach or that mentor role to help them keep digging into things that are interesting to them. Even though it's not necessarily part of our class, I think we can help cultivate those mindsets and cultivate and maybe like diminish that whole like old school mentality of this game that I would love to see kind of disappear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, let's keep going with some more examples of things that we can do.
Yes, and I'm about to share a different window. Hang on, I'm having a moment here to find it. I don't know why it's not popping up.
Yeah, that's okay. You mentioned earlier the digital tool continuum. Guess what? I found it.
Yeah.
There it was right here. So there's where you've got the digital tool continuum, from using digital tools to do old things to do new things. And then there's your beautiful little Judy Jetson image right in the middle of it.
Yes. Yep. Okay. I don't know, for whatever reason, it's not showing the one thing I want it to show. So, let's see. Sorry, guys.
Nope, that's okay.
Everybody loves it when techie people have techie problems. So
isn't it? Yeah, that's so true. Whenever I do presentations, sometimes I'll say, because inevitably something's going to happen with my slides or the internet's going to go slow or something. And I always ask, how many of you feel a little bit better knowing that I'm having some issues? And they all like kind of grin and they're like,
oh yeah. Yeah. Cause all the teachers raise their hand and like, this is why I don't use technology.
Right.
No, wait, teachable moment. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. So
right.
Anyway, we got it back up. I pulled up a blog post that I did on dynamic learning with G Suite. And I've already talked about a few of these things. Of course, we hit on slides quite a bit, but the idea of creating an ebook in Google Slides is something that I share a lot. And I think just when you realize that slides can change sizes, that it completely transforms the way you think about it. When it doesn't look like a presentation anymore, that really, helps us better understand that. Should I show that?
Yeah, that would be great.
That is. Okay, so I'm just going to open up slides.google.com and open up a new slide deck to show you real quick just how easy this is.
Yeah, when you can just kind of like pull it up on the fly and show us right there, that I think that's just about as good as anything to show how easy and quick it is to do.
Oh yeah, there are plenty of tools that I would have to record this ahead of time because it would take me half of a training to show this. But once you get into your slides, you just go to File Page Setup. And so the defaults are like that widescreen versus standard. And that really just has to do with our widescreen projectors versus our old square ones. But if you click on Custom, you can actually make the slides any size you want, any size, in inches, centimeters, points, or pixels. Okay, so if you think about this, if I just go to inches, I make this 8.5 by 11, I can then make this look like a piece of paper.
Right.
And sometimes you need to print on paper too. So this could be useful. But, once I started creating this way and realized how easy it was to make an ebook with lots of images, because that was my problem in Docs. Docs just doesn't let you put images where you want. You can't layer them, but I can do that in Slides. So it really opened up some possibilities. So I make almost all of my ebooks are made in Slides because of that, because I have lots of screenshots and things like that. And, once you just figure out this one little tweak, you're like, oh, well, I could make an ebook. I could make a banner for my Google Classroom. I can make all of these other things, because not only can I change the size, but I can download as. And I could, so for an ebook, I make it a PDF, because that's the most universally accepted file format in the world. Even grandma in Nebraska can open it up on her old phone. JPEGs and PNGs. So if you want to make an image file, like I said, like a banner for your Google Classroom or your Google Form or your website or whatever it is you're creating. So once you kind of see just these few options here, I think that just completely transforms the way you think about the usage of this tool that is originally created to make presentations.
Yeah, nope, you're exactly right. Did you hear that whenever you clicked and you changed it to 8.5 by 11 and you clicked, did you hear all of those people go, what? You can do what? Because I heard it. I don't know if you heard it.
Yeah. Mic drop. No. Well, the other thing is that's how most of that paid teacher stuff is made. They probably use PowerPoint more than they use Slides, but with the pretty little chevron backgrounds and all that stuff, you can't do that in Docs.
Yeah.
So Slides is like a go-to for me, just because I can get more creative there.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I was just going to say real quick about Docs versus Slides that, to me, it seems like a document. If you've got a document right here, it's so linear. It's like you go straight down and your rows of text and everything is just like put in a line, which is great if you're putting text to be read down a document. But I really feel like Slides is more spatial. It's like you've got your design, all of your design capabilities available, and you can put it up here and you can move it 2 pixels this way, and you can, make it bigger and smaller, and you can set it wherever you want and it stays there, even if you add text above it or below it. And so if you want to get all of your design possibilities and move things around spatially, then I think Slides is right on. So totally agree with you. Those are my different words to say the same thing.
No, I mean, and sometimes I regret how much I talk about Slides, but it's such a flexible tool.
Yeah.
And like I said, as soon as I start hearing those conversations about how much it's just still used as a presentation tool, I'm like, missed opportunity right there. Mm-hmm. Tons of options.
Yeah. Yeah. And, some of the stuff that we're, and, we've been kind of heavy on Google, and just to provide a little bit of balance, that's one of the things that I love about Spark too, is that, with Adobe Spark, you've got, posts, which allow you to kind of layer some of those images in, and it makes some of that graphic design really easy, so that it's not linear like that. You can pull in the pictures, you can pull in the text. It gives you some of those preset layouts and that kind of thing. So yeah. And, there's a variety of different tools. Canva is one that, Kasey, I know you and I both love for doing real simple graphic design. And, a lot of those things, you can go to different tools, and whatever your go-to tool is, it just goes back to what we were talking about before, where if you can continue to find new ways to use that same tool, with the Google Slides examples we've been giving, or with Spark, or with, Canva, or whatever your tool of choice is, if you can find those different spins on that same one, then you don't have to spend as much time, relearning new tools, and you can focus all that time on the learning and instruction and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. I think too, one of the stories that's in the book, and that I've told several times about these missed opportunities, was a teacher who posted on social media and essentially was asking for help, because the PowerPoint presentation that her kids had created every year, she moved it into Slides, and suddenly the kids were cheating. She believed they were using the information from previous students. And so what was interesting was I like to sit back for a little while and see how everybody else responds before, I answer, just to kind of gauge the audience and see what's going on. And the first few comments were all about the cheating. They're like, lock it down. You got to use this plagiarism checker. You can't use Google Slides. Google Slides is the enemy. And it was just really eye-opening to me. And I was like, what? That's not the point at all. And so, it's like, okay, if the assignment can be easily duplicated, we have to rethink what we're doing. We can't keep doing the same assignments that we used to do. We have to adjust. We have to totally rethink assignments. And if you give students choice, if you give them more opportunities to do things, and you require reflection where they explain their answers or how they created what they created, those things can't be duplicated. And, so that was really eye-opening to me, because I forget that there's still a sort of that lockdown mindset for a lot of schools, that and teachers, they just, and it wasn't her fault. It really wasn't. I'm not pointing the finger at her, but at the same time, she just hadn't been exposed to alternatives. She thought this was the way to do it. And so it was very interesting to see that. And I love having those conversations and helping teachers, think of different ways. But I am a huge proponent of building in choice. And I think that can solve a lot of those types of issues.
Oh, and since you mentioned choice, this is a really easy say. It's like we've done this before, maybe 50 plus podcast episodes like that's happened, but yeah, that's another one of my favorite examples out of your book and off of your blog and everything, is talking about how you can bring choice in. And I think that gets to the heart of the cheating, but also to the heart of, authentic learning, is that all of us want to be able to choose what fits us. And that doesn't mean that we get to choose like whatever, but there's a way that we can make some choices within the constraints of what we've got to learn. And I think that's one of my favorite examples out of the book, is some of the stuff that you suggest on how to help kids have a say in what they learn. Do you want to show us some examples of that?
Sure. Yeah. Sorry. I forgot I was screen sharing that whole time while we were talking. It was like,
we were checking out Gronk's muscles, I think.
Yeah. Wasn't that hilarious? I was like, okay, what is this dude doing here? Right. No, with choice, I mean, there's so many different ways that we can give choice. First of all, you might have the choice of tool, and that's sort of the first one that comes to mind. But kids have to have a toolbox to know what tool to pull from. So that's something you have to build up to. I usually suggest 3 to 5, no more. And I would list them. And if you're doing your assignments in Google Classroom, just add the links to each of those tools and tell the kids in the directions, you get to choose one of these tools to complete this task. And that's great. So kids will continue to build, and you might even throw in one of those, you can't use the same one you used last time. Or I even have caught myself now, you can use anything but Google Slides, just because I want people to learn something new. And especially because I talk about it all the time, that's the go-to. I already know how to use it. This is the easy way out. I don't want you to take the easy way out. I want you to learn something. The other thing is even choice of devices, because now we've got a lot of schools who are very lucky to not only, maybe be one-to-one, but they might have kids that are allowed to use their phones too. And I know even while I'm sitting here with you, there are things that are easier to do on my phone than to do on my computer. Sure. And that's something kids need to know how to do too. They need to know how to choose the right device. Is this something that's better on my Chromebook, or is this something that's better on mobile? And then, you can also build into that whole using the digital tool of your choice thing, which, by the way, freaks a lot of people out, including adults. But I love to do that and spring that on them, because that is some free open choice that no one's used to, and they want to be given the right answer. And so one of the things that I did in my classroom that really helped me figure out how to do choice, because choice and differentiation, I was like, how do I do this with, these crazy 8th graders? And so I started doing learning menus or choice boards. And that was really sort of eye-opening for me. Let's see if I can manage to share my screen again, make sure I've got the right thing. Yeah, we'll look at Gronk again. And
he's coming back.
Hang on, y'all.
And this is one of those things that Kasey has in her book that she's got some really good examples of. In fact, what's funny is that as I was flipping through, here it is right here. So no, these are the vision boards that we saw earlier. Yeah, we're both like flipping around here trying to find stuff. Kasey, have you found yours?
I have, but the screen share thing is getting really picky. Okay, I found it. Got it.
Okay.
Had
There
to
we
move
go.
some tabs around. So, so we're looking at it now, right?
Gronk is back.
Gronk is back. Okay. So, the choice boards, and I'll give everyone a link to everything that I'm talking about too. So if you're looking at this and you're like, because I am known for overwhelming with links and resources, but I will give that all to you. So I do have a blog post on this, as well as it being in the book, on interactive learning menus and choice boards using G Suite files. And so, of course, again, it doesn't have to be in G Suite, but you can create these in lots of other places. And choice boards are not new. It's been around for years. They used to just be on paper, but as Carol Ann Tomlinson tells us, at its core, differentiated instruction means addressing ways in which students vary as learners. So giving them multiple ways to reach the learning goal can be really important. And, empowering them with choice is one way to do that. And so all a learning menu or choice board is a list or some other creative way of giving them different activities to choose from. I mean, I've seen this just by putting them on the board and kids get to choose, all the way to making something really cool and digital interactive versions. But I have several examples in here. Tic-tac-toes are probably my favorite. They're easy to create. They are very flexible. You can use these for short, like 20-minute activities, or it could be like a big 6-week unit kind of thing. It can be summative. It can be formative. So there's lots of different ways to use these. I number mine. I have lots of tips on how I do the tic-tac-toe, but I number mine because that gives kids a reference in terms of, instead of saying, hey, miss, that thing, so that they know which one to add. Okay, number 5. And the way I use these is I make number 5 non-negotiable. So that helps me control the way they make tic-tac-toe, because what my 8th graders did as soon as I gave them a tic-tac-toe menu? They tried to figure out the easiest.
Oh, yeah.
The shortest amount of time, the shortest amount of work. Well, as a teacher, you have complete instructional design control. So there's no easy way out. They're all going to point to the learning goals that you want to accomplish. And so by everybody doing the one thing in number 5, that also means they have to choose one from the blue and one from the yellow. So those can align to different things as well. But I've got templates here and lots of other examples. This is one from my friend Tommy Spall in Brenham ISD. I'll go ahead and open it because guess what? This one's in slides.
No.
And so he created this like a restaurant menu. You choose an entree, an appetizer, a dessert, a beverage, etc. This one has a tech focus because Tommy is a tech coach. And so he designed this so he could give it to his teachers and they can make it work for their content areas. So don't be, dismayed because this isn't what you teach, but this is just an easy way to do this. He's got project rubrics. He's got Flipgrid and Padlet all embedded into this. Awesome sauce right here. The other one is a bingo card. And this is from my friend Amber Tiemann and Melinda Miller. And they are both principals. And they created this to stop the summer slide for their teachers, or hopefully slow it down anyway. But this was like a challenge for teachers. You'll see there's just little ideas here, watch an educational TED Talk. And of course they had prizes and stuff aligned with those who got a bingo. But if you look at this and you're like, I don't deliver professional development, this can easily be something that transforms into a classroom bingo board, all kinds of ways. So you can get as creative as you want with a choice board, or it can be as simple as a table, like a tic-tac-toe. So, there's lots of examples in here, and I keep a Pinterest board of these as well, which there is a link on here somewhere back to the Pinterest board. So anytime I find an awesome choice board, whether it has anything to do with technology or not, I add it to my board. So let's see if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. But if you're not on Pinterest, there are tons of learning resources, and you can look at these without creating an account. So, but I just wanted you to kind of grasp the concept here of how much is out there.
Oh my goodness, that is enormous. And I do have to say, Kasey does have some of the best Pinterest boards. I mean, there's tons of stuff all over all of them. I've seen them many times.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, well, this is great. And yeah, look at all those examples. So yeah, we've had some practical stuff. I think there's been a healthy dose of inspiration and some new ways to think about using these digital tools to create dynamic learning. So Kasey, this has been awesome. This is exactly what I hoped that it would be. Can you give everybody a little bit of information on where they can find you and the stuff that you do online?
Sure. If you'd like to stalk me, no, I'm just kidding. That's one of those things that you don't do in real life, but you do online, right?
Uh-huh.
Follow people. No, sorry. You can find me at shakeuplearning.com. All of my contact information is there. I'm pretty much Shake Up Learning across all the social media platforms. Tweet me, Instagram me, Facebook me, whatever your pleasure. And like I said, I'm going to set up a resource page with everything that we've talked about today too, so that Matt can add this to all of the resources for the video and you can click along as you watch. But thank you, Matt, so much. This has been a fabulous opportunity to talk to you again and more educators. And so we had a little bit of a reunion because Matt and I don't get to see each other or talk very much in the summer. So this has been fabulous. And I appreciate all that you do, not only for me, but for educators.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that too. And a little mutual admiration society going on here. And of course, Kasey and I do the Google Teacher Tribe podcast. If you're not a listener of that, you might want to check it out at googleteachertribe.com. When the school year is going on, it's a weekly show where we share Google news and updates. We share some practical things you can do in the classroom with Google tools. We have tips and tricks and questions from the tribe, and then we share some resources, and there's just a ton of stuff in everyone. We have a blast doing them, but over the summer we don't get to talk very much, so this has been nice for us, and hopefully it's been nice for you too to be able to watch. So definitely do share what you've been hearing and thinking on the Ditch Summit hashtag. Definitely tag Kasey at Shake Up Learning on Twitter if you're doing that. I know Kasey's also got some really good freebies that you can get on her site. She's got some cheat sheets and some other downloadable things, and she's got a really good email newsletter. I mean, there's just tons of stuff that comes from Kasey's brain that we get to enjoy. So anyway, hope this has been a good session for you. Hope that you'll join us for the other QCraft Ditch Summit presentations too. And thanks again for watching. And Kasey, thanks again for being here.
Bye, y'all.